0 seconds. Cool. So hope you'll manage to sign in, and let's get started. All right. So this is today's itinerary. We're gonna have a short club update section with updates from the design team, Swamp Girls, and updates about a Disney workshop that's upcoming. We're going to have an internship panel with about 30 minutes of Q&A session for some of our TPED members that have had internships. That will be hosted by Brandon. And then we will split up into breakout rooms to do a resume and portfolio review.
All right, so first off, some updates with the roller coaster design team. So if you aren't familiar with us, Gator TPED's roller coaster design team is working to make an operating roller coaster model at a scale where this model is around 8x4 feet. So it's pretty big and hefty thing, and it requires a lot of engineering and making sure that everything will actually work. So we're kind of divided into 3 or 4 groups where people are working on the mechanical components, the structural components, all the controls and wiring, and also a group that is creative who is working on all the model building. So the model building group is probably one of the most active in this semester, in the sense that they're actually going to be putting everything together and making a lot of artistic pieces outside of what you just see in this image. So if you want to have any skills in things like set design, model building, that's definitely a really awesome opportunity and you should join. And also if you want to learn how to design roller coasters at a small scale, be sure to come on out, and that's every Monday at 7:30. And this is most likely the last semester the roller coaster project is going on. You can find more information on the link tree, but also we'll be planning out projects for the coming semester in fall 2021. So if you have any ideas for cool projects that we can build, which is focused on engineering and has a hands-on component to it, be sure to fill out one of the options underneath the link tree, the QR code, and give us your ideas. And also you can basically be applying to become a design team captain, which is an awesome opportunity to gain a lot of experience. Ooh.
Hi, everyone. For those who don't know, Swamp Thrills is our design competition that we put on, I think, every semester. Now, this is our 3rd one. So this one is space themed, and it's going to be April 10th. And then there's a few updates. It's on a Saturday. There's going to be 2 prompts, one that's more engineering based and the other that's creative based. The sign up is now open. You can register to be on, like, if you're on a team, if you have some team members but want more, or if you just are an individual and want to be placed on a team. And you can scan the link tree for that. And there's a Facebook group as well that you can join for any updates. And both of those prompts will be released on March 1st, which is next week.
All right. So recently, Andy, our lovely advisor, has shared with me that there is a really cool opportunity. Disney is hosting a workshop called Resume Writing and Effective Interviewing Power Hour. There will be a recruiter from Disney Internships and Programs coming down to teach this workshop. It'll be on Monday, March 8th, so about 2 weeks from now, from 3 to 3:50 p.m. The Zoom link will be posted, but if you guys want to take a quick picture of that or review the video, that will also be the code. So come out to that if you're interested in hearing from Disney firsthand what they're looking for in your resume and during your interview.
Alrighty, so we'll just head straight into the internship panel now. So we've got wonderful members of the club and alumni of the club as well who had experience with internships, and it's a good chance to know about their experiences, how they got them, what they've done, and basically just any advice they have. My name is Brandon. I'll be hosting by asking questions. If any of you guys have any questions during, just shoot them in the chat and I'll see if I'll just slide them in at the appropriate time. So hopefully, I think everyone in question should be pinned. So I think we should start off with some introductions. So if you guys the panelists want to introduce yourselves by your name, what year you're in, your major, and what internships and or industry experience you guys had. That'd be very helpful to start with.
Actually, I'll go first because my name is C and C is the first alphabet.
There you
So
go.
I'm Christopher Copeland. I am a structural engineering student, which will be graduating this semester with a bachelor's and going on to get a master's in structural engineering. Oh my God, my face is big now. I lost my train of thought. So I had 2 internships. One at Skyline Attractions, which designs and manufactures roller coasters, and they're located in Orlando. That's this one. And the other is at BRPH, which is a A&E in Melbourne, which is over here, which they're more diversified, but they do engineering for theme park facilities. So instead of like the roller coaster, they'd be building and designing like the buildings around it and all that. And also outside of just theme park and entertainment projects, they also like are diversified. So they do like aerospace and manufacturing and other things.
Thanks, Chris. All right. So what else? Want to introduce themselves?
Hi guys, I'm Ellie. I am a 4th year mechanical engineering major, also studying set design. I will be graduating in another year, so I'll be around. I have had an internship at NASA, working primarily on Universal Japan and Universal Beijing.
All right.
I'll go from here, Brandon. Hey, my name is Griffin Chobal. I'm a proud 5th year mechanical engineering student graduating this semester, so very happy about that. But I've interned in a few different places in the industry. So I started off doing some scenic fabrication with Artistic Entertainment Services. I interned with Universal Creative and their in-house analysis and testing team. I did some project management with ThemeWorks here kind of near Gainesville. I did an internship with animatronics, working with Animax Designs, and then most recently I interned at Walt Disney World in Orlando with the ride and show engineering team.
Hi, my name is Mark Lawrence. I am a 5th year computer engineering major. I'm also graduating this semester. For industry experience, I interned at Walt Disney World. Was it 2 falls ago now, fall 2019, and there I was working on animatronics software specifically for some of the figures in Galaxy's Edge.
All right, I guess that leaves me.
Well, yeah.
Will, I'm a 4th year mechanical engineering student. I had to think about that for a minute. It's been a long road through school. I started out in between freshman and sophomore year as a rides technician intern at SeaWorld Orlando, where I got to work hands-on on Manta, B&M flying coaster, as well as a hydraulic simulator, Wild Arctic, for those of you who know SeaWorld rides. After that, I went to a company called NTech Innovative Engineering, like on a smaller company, kind of like some of the things Griffin did, where we did various props that showed up around the industry and rides and shows, and other things that are themed, but not necessarily theme parks. After that, I went to Universal Creative and I was in the ride and show design team for a couple of months. And then now I am back working as a rides technician, not as an intern, but full-time at SeaWorld on Icebreaker and Mako.
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys very much. And I'll start off with just some questions now. So I'm going to ask Chris the first question here. Where did you hear about your internships? Because I think your companies are quite interesting, you know?
Wait, can you say what the question was again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Where did you hear about your internships to know to apply to them?
So that's an interesting question. Yeah. So at Skyline Attractions, I didn't apply anything. I met someone who worked at Skyline Attractions at ASTM F24 event, which for you, those of you who don't know, is the committee who designs and creates a lot of the standards for amusement park ride safety. So a lot of times students will go there to try to help and volunteer writing the safety standards and learn as much as they can. And I met one of the engineers who worked there, and we got along well. And I was sending him some of my like portfolio projects actually from the design team, like the earlier one before the current model we're working on now. And he was impressed. And I mentioned I didn't have an internship for the summer, so just randomly over emails, he asked me if I wanted to have an internship there. So that was nice. He never looked at my resume, and that was probably the unicorn of getting internships, I suppose. BRPH was a lot different though, where I met an architect there on several occasions through different TEA events and GitGab, which is like I guess the best way of talking about it's like speed dating interviews with a bunch of themed entertainment companies. And he was trying to get me to work there for like a year. And BRPH actually came to UF's career fair, and I gave them my resume, and then I applied online. So I actually talked to my boss a couple of times about this when the first time he saw my resume was, but it was like in 2018, I think, in the later half of the year. And then he saw it again. And just because timing didn't work out the first time, but it worked out the second time, that they decided to hire me for the summer last semester. And yeah, so basically the one is through networking and the second one is through being persistent.
All right, thank you. And Ellie, if I can ask you the same question, how did you hear about your internships?
So I think that one of the best tools, kind of jumping off of what one of Chris's points was, is to make sure that you know how to network. My internship I got because I didn't know the person who was eventually my boss, but I knew somebody who knew him, and he recommended to apply. And just being able to have, because I think NASL is one of those like people who are in the industry know it, but if you're outside of the industry, you don't think, oh, that's a big theme park fabrication company. It looks like absolutely nothing when you drive past it on the road. So for finding vendors, just make sure that you're talking to, your friends in TPED, you're reaching out to people that you know who are in the industry, maybe people that have come to speak, because they will know a lot better than, just Disney, Universal, SeaWorld, what places are to apply.
All right, awesome. So I'll move on to the next question here, which is, what is your number one interview tip? So how about Mark? You have any advice for interviews?
Sure. Yeah, I think the most important part about when you're having an interview is to be confident in yourself. So by the time you get to the interview process, you've been chosen for a reason. Someone's already looked over your resume and they already think you're a good fit. So during the interview process, you're mostly just trying to prove that you are who you say you are on the resume. You're just trying to make sure that you're personable. You can have a conversation with the recruiter you're interviewing with, and of course, you actually have the technical skills you wrote about on your resume. So, and of course, your resume better than anybody else. So I feel like it's important to be confident in everything that you've done, and you should be able to feel confident about being able to talk about everything you've worked on your resume, and then being able to translate that into how that would work, how that would help you land the position.
Sounds great. Yeah, Griffin, do you have any tips for interviews as well?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Mark was saying. Another thing I think that's helpful is if you work on some personal projects on the side personally, it's a little different right now, but like with Zoom, you can do screen sharing. So one of the things I'd recommend is if you get the chance, you can kind of dictate the interview by showing off some of the work you've done, because that work better than what the recruiter could ask you. They could ask you some crazy technical questions that might throw you off. But if you can sway it in such a way where you're talking about something you're confident in, something you're passionate about, they'll see both of those aspects, and it's definitely helped me in the past.
Okay, sounds great. All right, so I got a question for Will now. What do you think is the most important part of a resume, you'd say?
Okay. Well, I would argue it depends on what year you are in school. If you're like a junior or a senior, probably having a past internship or past work experience. I know I worked in the industry in operations before I had my first internship. And I really think that was a huge help, showing that you care about what you're doing, because you may not have portfolio projects yet. And, so these are great things that you'll do as you start to understand more about whatever your field is. But initially coming into school, you're not going to have that. So one of the biggest things for me was the summer between high school and coming into college, having a job and showing that you're, capable of working and finding a good work-life balance, and that you're going to be able to be someone who's well suited to a work environment. And kind of having that on your resume shows that. Another thing is, if you want to go into the industry, TPED again, you know, showing that you care about the industry and showing that you have some type of connection to it. You know, I mean, it's a little bit different if you're going for aerospace or defense or something, but this industry, there's a lot of people who want to go into it, and it's very, very competitive. So, I mean, you know, of course, in the interview, show that you care about the industry and you care about whatever company specifically you're interviewing for. But having that on your resume before you get to the interview, kind of showing, okay, I have some skin in the game and I know the basics of this industry or this company. You know, you may have worked at one of their competitors before, so that at least you have a basic understanding going in of what's expected of you. So that as they're reading out the job requirements, so you can say, okay, yeah, sure, I understand that. Well, what about this? We did it differently at this other company. And, you know, when you get to the interview stage, if you can kind of have those things, it really helps, in my opinion.
Awesome, thank you. Actually, does anyone else want to talk about any other resume ideas and tips anyone just want to throw out there? Yeah, Ellie?
Coming from somebody who has a less technical background than Will does, if you're like me and most of your projects and your personality comes off as more creative, I think a really important thing is to have some personality in your resume. On top of things like portfolio projects and actually having a portfolio. So if you're going purely into tech, it's perfectly fine to have, you know, the black bullet point, Times New Roman, Calibri font, whatever resume. That's actually what a lot of companies look for. But if you are trying to apply for, say, like an Imagineering position or really any of the smaller companies that do more of the actual artistic design, you definitely try to, you know, have a nice template, have, you know, personal logo even, or make your portfolio a website on Wix or something that really pops and shows what you like to do and what you enjoy. And I think that can stand out in certain ways to show passion just as much as, you know, something like a past project that you've worked on, because it shows that you've taken the time to show others that you want to present yourself in a good way.
Yeah, so segueing from that, you know, the term personal brand gets thrown around from time to time. So for instance, you might say for Will, it might be more of like a technical experience kind of thing with like ride operation, stuff like that. And Ellie, yours might be more something more like a creative side with like your scenic design minor. So for instance, what would you guys say, how do you want to brand yourself to your interviewer? What do you guys say? Or what qualities should you try to showcase?
Can I answer that? I think it really does depend. I think it's better to come off as being confident in what you want to do, but it's totally okay to be open to trying new things, you know, regarding what the job description entails. But, you know, if you're brandless and you're just saying, I'll do anything to work for this company, you know, that might not be as appealing to the recruiter when they can find another candidate who says, you know, I want to do this, and they might want more of that. So I think going into the interview, knowing exactly what it is you want. And I think it traces back to like the way you present yourself on social media. So that kind of LinkedIn or a portfolio or even your resume. If you can show linearity in what you're posting, like, you know, if you're interested in roller coasters and then you post you know, you're working on a project that's, you know, I don't know, we'll say designing a restaurant, like just concept art, that might not work as well with your branding. So trying to be a little consistent so that when people recognize you, they know, okay, this is what I'm getting when, you know, I'm talking to this person.
Yeah, very fair. And actually sparking off of that, you mentioned about like, you know, like different industries that you apply for and different ideas. So actually I'm going to ask Will this question. Would you recommend applying for internships outside of your normal field?
Ooh, absolutely. So a little bit of a backstory. My first internship was not, so I'm a mechanical engineering student. My first internship was hands-on working in the shop on ride systems. So basically as a rides technician, came in at 4 a.m, inspected rides and kept them running. You know, typically when you think mechanical engineering student, that's not the first thing you think. You know, you think someone who's going to be sitting behind a computer, designing things, designing mechanical systems, or even designing static structures, selecting materials and things like that. But it was a very different experience. And everywhere I've gone afterwards, that's always the thing that they pick out of my resume. Like I've worked at Universal Creative, I've worked at other show action equipment companies, and still the SeaWorld position keeps coming up because of the skills that I built at it. You know, I may not have been designing anything, but I was working with systems that were designed well and some that weren't designed as well. So from that, you know, the way I like to say it is, it may take 2 or 3 years to design something, but someone's got to run it for 20 or 30 years. So you always have to think about, coming from a mechanical engineering standpoint, you have to understand you're doing something, but who has to piggyback off of what you did and continue with it down the road. And that was an amazing experience to kind of work on understanding that better. So even though it wasn't mechanical, it opened up a whole new set of skills. And I think that's true of anywhere, especially if it's your first internship, because it's always the most difficult to get the first internship on your resume. And once you get that, you have a lot easier time going down the road getting your second and third, because you've established yourself as a good worker that someone was willing to take that first initial chance on. But absolutely, especially for your first internship or your second internship, definitely don't hesitate to look elsewhere.
Sounds awesome. All right,
I
thank
see
you.
a lot of people nodding their heads, so I think everyone else on this panel is agreeing with me.
Looks like it.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh
yeah, you go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Just to kind of reaffirm what Will was saying. Also, it's definitely important not to only focus on internships within the industry. No, obviously everyone's here because we love going to theme parks and we want to potentially end up in the field. But especially right now, there are not that many opportunities. And even maybe like maybe 2 or 3 years, I don't know, whenever stuff might start popping up again, you want to be able to have other internships or other experiences you can show that to prove you're a good worker, you know what you're talking about. So definitely also look for opportunities outside of the industry. Again, my first internship was at a small tech company out in San Jose, working on just IoT stuff. So not necessarily relevant to the theme park stuff, but when I interviewed at Disney, that definitely came up, and I was able to talk about the experience I had in the workplace, working on a bigger project at an actual engineering company. And that definitely helped me get that internship in the end. So just definitely look for anything you get, especially at the beginning.
Yeah, awesome. Actually, Mark, I got another question for you. Basically, from my end, we're talking about like that first internship. I know that personally. I'm trying to get my first internship. I applied to many things. I was wondering what made you a competitive candidate? What made you stand out to get that first initial internship?
Okay. Yeah. Definitely. So yeah, I got my first internship after my sophomore semester. And I definitely, what let me get that position was I had a lot of personal projects already. So I'm a computer engineering major, so it's fairly easy to get like side coding projects done. And by the time I had that internship, I had taught myself iOS app development, just as something kind of fun to work on. And I was able to make like a handful of small app projects, and I was able to again put those on the resume and talk with that during the interview. And that definitely set me apart from most of the other like second year students, because I had like put in the extra time outside of classes to learn more and actually build stuff that can be applicable. So I think just being able to work on something potentially related to your major, but outside class, just to show that you're kind of committed to it and you're interested in learning more about your field.
Chris, how about same question to you? What do you think made you a standout candidate?
A little bit hard I was very fortunate with my first internship, but I think kind of piggybacking off what Mark said, just even just looking outside TPED and theme parks, university club activities are probably the most important part of getting early experience before a job. So like as a structural engineer, there's a steel bridge from ASE. There's like the clubs that make the race cars and stuff and the solar panels and all that. I'm not too well versed in what they do, or who they are, but then like what Mark said, all his projects with doing different controls things and computer stuff, very technical knowledge I have. But even outside of that, just if you have an interest in something and you want to, outside of your regular classes, just start a project playing around with different software that you can get free through the university, and just see how far you can go and what you can do. And you could even like what I did was just reached out to the person I met and said, is this similar to what you're doing? Do you have any tips on how I can make this project better and learn more skills? And yeah, where do I go from here? And they can make you have a better project, and they may even have opportunity for you to do something else.
Awesome. All
And
right.
also, I think one other thing, kind of going back a little bit, but also with resumes and work and experience, even outside of something like a mechanic where you're actually doing similar things to mechanical engineering, but there's like a link between them. Doing something like being a server at a restaurant or working at a hardware store, or for me, I was working at a fishing tackle store. You get a lot of experience that uh, recruiters and your future bosses will look for that isn't necessarily engineering skills, but being able to talk to a customer, being able to handle problems when someone gets cheese on their hamburger and they didn't want cheese. Those are important skills to have. So,
All right. Awesome. Thank you. And I guess another question I think is pretty interesting is how many internships do you guys apply for each year? About? Just a general question if anyone wants to volunteer a number.
As
Let
many
me-
as possible.
I want to comment on that real quick. The nature of the themed entertainment industry is very different than maybe aerospace or automotive. So if you're automotive, you're looking at a lot of the big players, you know, Tesla, Ford, whatever it is, and you could kind of spread those out. You know, you could send in per company like 10 different internship applications, multiply that by 10 companies. That's not really how it works in the entertainment industry. Up until COVID, I mean, all I've focused on has pretty much been the entertainment industry. So instead of focusing on the quantity of applications, it's always been focusing on what companies do I want to get to know better? Who do I want to reach out to on LinkedIn and network with? So kind of like Ellie with networking, Chris with networking, a lot of my internships have come from networking. The exceptions are the bigger companies like Disney and Universal. It's better to kind of, you know, when you see an application that fits your skills or interests, apply. You can't really bypass that. You can do some networking that'll help. But definitely, you know, it's less about the number of applications. When you're talking about different industries, that's also a good topic we can talk about, is kind of marketing yourself a little differently for those. But for this industry, I would say it's all about the networking.
Yeah, thank you, Griffin. So let me see here. So I guess this, I think we've touched upon this, but if anyone wants to volunteer some more, like from personal projects, how you guys do on your own time and for a portfolio. So are there any personal projects that any of you guys done that you haven't mentioned yet that you think really helped you stand out as well? Yeah, Ellie?
I can start this one. I actually, like, the reason I got my first internship was from having a quirky personal project. I have a soap making business with my mom, and my boss was very interested in that. So Griffin's point about, you know, consistency in your projects can be good, but I actually think that if you're like me and you just have a lot of different interests, as long as you're showcasing yourself, moving from, you know, you're designing it to you're completing it, you know, showing completion of a project, showing that you can follow through on something, that's more important than I think developing like, you know, just try new stuff. I'm currently building a Muppet. I don't know how it's going to go. It's taken so much time, but that's something that I think looks interesting. So if you find something that you know you're interested in, just go for it. Just start designing something, because honestly, those things tend to stand out a lot more than, say, you know, just things that you do in class. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I mean, my brother, even, he has a SoundCloud, and he basically got an interview with a company that was only interviewing seniors because they were interested in the fact that he was writing like electronic music. So just do whatever you're interested in. Just make sure you show follow through and that you can plan a project from point A to point B, because it shows you're a self-starter and it shows that you can work on something.
All right, that's awesome. All right, question for Will. So you mentioned how your internships were not like almost like a direct succession, but you learned skills from stuff. What would you say were the most important things you learned from your internships, maybe going from one to the other or just overall?
Oh man, you could ask all five of us and you get five very different answers. I mean, I could go very technical and I'm gonna try and refrain from doing that out of fear of boring everyone here. I mean, a lot of them are just kind of work in general skills, like how to communicate with people, how to problem solve. Oh crap, the roller coaster isn't running, and I've got pressure from everyone to get it back up and running because there are people who waited 90 minutes for this and want to get on. Okay, well, I've been in their shoes before. I can relate to it. Now I have a reason to want to get it open. Troubleshooting. A lot of communication. I mean, it really depends on what you do. And that's why, kind of like I was saying before, it's interesting to do something that's tangentially similar to what you may want to do in the future, what you think you may want to do in the future. Because then you can kind of experience, do I really want to do this? Oh, no, I don't like this at all. Okay, let me change my expected career path real quick because I still have enough time to do that or something similar.
Yeah, sounds great. And Mark, do you have any thoughts on it as well? If like what things you learned from your internships?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I don't want to be too technical like what Will said, because definitely what I learned a lot is just the difference of scale. So like, of course, like during projects, again, I don't want to make it too like codey, but for like all my coding classes, you have a project that's maybe like 100 lines of code, and then you get to your internship and you're working on a code base that is hundreds of files that makes a total of thousands and thousands of lines of code. So just being able to kind of take what you learn in classes and apply that to a much larger scale, more real world application. I think that's what helped me the most. And it was, again, of course, being able to do that in an internship is helpful since it's not as, maybe not as scary as jumping into your first real actual job and expecting to figure that all out then, because of course, during your internship, you're expected to be able to ask questions and figure stuff out while you're there.
Got it. Awesome. I guess I got almost like a personal question for myself. So at UF, right, this career fair gets hyped up every semester. You know, you always hear teachers be like, "Oh man, we got to like go around that." In your guys' experience, how helpful is the career fair? Have you guys actually had any success with talking, or maybe gain experience with interviewing or stuff like that? Because from what I've seen, when I go to a career fair, they talk for a little bit, and they're like, "Oh, great, apply online," which it's good to know about the companies. But do you guys think it's a worthwhile experience to go to career fair?
I think for this industry, it is a little interesting. You do sometimes have companies like Disney come. They do usually tell you to apply online. But if you are willing to broaden your horizons and you're trying to look for, say, you're like, hey, maybe I've done a lot of art. Maybe I'm trying to get more into the technical field and you want to find a job that's a bit more typical. My roommate has gotten all of her internships and she's had about 5 by going to career fair and talking to people. So if it is something that, you're looking to develop a skill that's a bit more mainstream and not, limiting yourself to just a themed entertainment job, it is a really good resource, but it is a bit more difficult to find the themed entertainment jobs at the career fair, I will say.
Yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts about career fair? Oh yeah, Mark.
Yeah, another, I think, important part about going to career fair is it gives you practice talking to recruiters. So by the time you actually have to do, even if it's not someone you met at career fair, by the time you have an interview with somebody who maybe you got an interview with applying online or talking to somebody at somewhere else, you have the practice talking to people. You kind of have the idea of what to expect, and hopefully it'll make you not as nervous when you actually have a real interview that will matter a bit more. So I think it helps most, for me, definitely at least. I didn't get any actual internships out of going to Career Showcase, but the practice and experience I got, like kind of learning how to talk to recruiters, I think has helped the most.
Just a quick add-on to that. I think that if you want to just practice, being ballsy and going and talking to people, I went to a hospitality career fair with my roommate or with my my former roommate, and I was not looking to get into that field, but I went and I said, hey, there's no stakes here. I'm just going to go try to talk to recruiters and see what they want. That's a really good way to practice, especially if you're a bit more anxious, because there are 0 stakes. You don't have to be there and you're not really looking for a job. All you're going is for the practice. So if you are somebody that's a bit more nervous talking to people, especially if they're at a booth or something like that, where it's a little bit less approachable, I would really suggest doing that.
Awesome. And I think we're wrapping up about 9 time. So I got one more question. So did any of you guys get job offers after your internship?
I can comment on that. It always depends on the company you're working with. For where I was at with the internships that were a little earlier in my career, I had mentors who were very supportive of my technical and professional development. So I was always on good terms with the people I worked with and had the opportunity to come back the following summer. But in each case, like for me, I interned with 5 different companies. I always felt like while I was in college, I wanted to get the most diverse set of experience I could, network as much as possible. So the opportunities were definitely there to come back. But as long as you're not burning bridges with the people you work with, I still follow up with the people I interned with 3 years ago. And, having that mindset is good. COVID's kind of played a big part in that right now, where I've had to look at getting a job in a different industry upon graduation. But it's it's being conscious of kind of how things are going. But the takeaway from that is do the best you can in your internship, try to learn, and it's really important to make good relationships with your supervisors and your fellow coworkers.
Thank you. Does someone else have any comments about job offers after internships? No? All right. So I think this is a good time to wrap it up. And I want to thank you guys all for answering the questions. And I hope everyone found this helpful. And I think we're going into the resume and portfolio workshops now, right, Ellie?